to when we're doing these. And we're just going to talk about tiers and players. And if you have any questions at all, especially if you're on the YouTube channel, I appreciate you guys that are subbed over there. Send them, put them in the comments. I'll get to them as we go through each round of the mock. We could talk about player spots, player landing spots. We did just drop our 2025 rookie guide last week. We dropped it on a Monday. So I'm definitely going to plug that. But if you wanted to go look at that, that is something that we offer on our Patreon, our Substack, or just a standalone. You guys can just go buy it in the description below. You'll see the links there. So we've been doing the 2025 rookie guide stuff for basically 3 years. We started it 3 years ago, me and Christian, and now we kind of on our own, and we've seen a ton of support there. So we appreciate you. So as always, if you have any Dynasty questions at all, it can be anything. It doesn't have to be rookie questions. You could drop them in the comments, or Devy questions too. As always, I like to plug my Devy stuff just because it's not a lot of people do it anymore. So want to shout it out. So I'm going to get this draft started here. Let me say we are rolling. And then if you have questions as we go through, we have some great drafters in here. 30 seconds, going to be a very quick mock as we kind of go through what that looks like. So we'll see kind of how the board shakes out. I will say a few things in terms of how the board is coming. Well, never mind. I was going to say it's pretty shocked the first 5 picks, but we got Travis Hunter going at 102, and we haven't seen that in a while. Or actually, I haven't seen that in a while, but I guess we'll get into that as soon as we can kind of go. I think that's the upside play, right? That's the ceiling play. I think if he was a pure wide receiver, that'd be the chalk play, right? If we thought that he was just going to be there at 102, he was going to be the wide receiver on that side of the ball with no defensive responsibility snaps. I think Hunter would go 102, right? We're going to have our first timeout. Come on, the great one. So as we go into this, let's talk about it. So you're seeing Amari and Hampton, Ashton Jeanty pretty much go 1-2 in a lot of drafts. I have seen some Travion kind of sneak in there. I have seen some Judkins sneak in there. We have our ADP for the most part in terms of at the TDR, kind of what the ADP looks like. But you are seeing basically Jeanty, Hampton go at those 2 spots there. Yeah, it's funny because Lobo's my guy. Shout out Lobo. He's a great man. If you got to go follow him if you're not following on Twitter. He did pose an interesting question, and I saw it. I usually just ship post now on Twitter, but he posed some good questions. So he talked about why are you taking Hunter at 102 over some of these other guys? What's your rationale for it? And I would go find his post. I would definitely go look into it because it's interesting to see kind of how people's thought processes are, how they're kind of looking and seeing how they want to kind of draft. I think it's interesting to kind of go through and see why are they taking Hunter there. I think it is the upside play. It is the ceiling play in terms of some of these guys. I just have a hard time picking him over like Ted, right? And I know that people don't love Ted McMillan as a prospect, but what could you ask for more, right? In terms of his landing spot, where he's at. I think that when you're looking at what he's been able to put to the table there, I have a hard time taking someone like Travis Hunter over Ted McMillan right now, but I understand a ceiling play, and I talked about it in our guide. So when you're looking at in terms of how this draft is played out in the first round, you have Jeanty, Hunter, Hampton, McMillan, and Ward, sitting there at 105. Generally speaking, that's kind of the first 5 picks. In whatever manner you want to do it, Ward is kind of one of those things. You need a quarterback, so you're going to take him, right? McMillan, I saw him go a little later. I saw him at 106, 107. It probably just depends on how those teams need a running back in those first 5 picks there. But the problem is me and Jay Stein talked about on our last show with Cam Ward is what is the ceiling play, right? To me, he's Derek Carr. That's his ceiling as a quarterback in terms of fantasy. So if you're worried about that, I have a hard time maybe taking him above Henderson or Judkins, Loveland, those type of guys here. Now, as far as some other guys that go on the board here, we have Henderson and Judkins, and that's fine. You want to go back to back on those picks. Like John points out here, he got Judkins at 110. That's pretty good value for a guy that's pretty much just going to be in line in terms of volume and production. That's not a bad play. Then you have RJ Harvey, and man, that is early for RJ Harvey. So I guess I'm the noted RJ Harvey hater. I just worry about where he's at in terms of, I think the landing spot's fine. And I understand in terms of Peyton and what she's doing. I think people are calling him Kamara when he's not Kamara. He's a 24-year-old rookie. And then I go back to what I said. I don't want to be a hypocrite because I always talk about running backs. When you think of drafting them or using them in value in Dynasty, it's basically what can they do for you the next game. That's how volatile their value is. So RJ Harvey could do something for you this next year, right? So I don't think it's a terrible pick. I just think you're capping yourself with a with a with a back who doesn't necessarily have the highest ceiling ever, right? And you'd have to expect him to really make a bang for your buck there in terms of his age. Next 3 years, he has to have top 12 finishes, right? He has to have that. It's a lot of pressure for a rookie running back, especially in that system that does like to see the committee backs, right? And also, when you're looking at it from just a dynasty perspective, how volatile the position is, there's other guys, Caleb, Loveland, Warren, and tight end premium that I would have taken over him probably. Now, I don't want to time out, so I'm going to try to pick here on the clock. Man, am I going to double tap tight ends? Is that what I'm going to do here? So looking at it on across the board. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and just double tap tight ends. But when you're thinking of kind of, where RJ Harvey is, and I get it, Nick. I know you drafted him. I don't want you to come after me in the comments. I find. He did have 70 targets, and you're right. I see that upside there from a PPR perspective too. I think it's more for me is just guys I'd rather take after him, right, ahead of him. So I have like any chance RJ Harvey falls to 201 or more, I'm okay taking a shot at him. I think my main concern is not the player. It's the value that you're getting back for him and where he's getting drafted, right? That's my main concern. I think from a playing standpoint, if he gets top 12 finish next year, I think you guys win. I think people that draft him in the first round, you'd be excited for that. But I just would rather have some other guys pass. And that's just kind of how you look at the rookie drafts and how they're playing out, right? I would draft Loveland. I would draft Caleb. I would have Warren, Egbuka, Burden all over RJ Harvey. That's just where I'm at here. Now, when you're wrapping up the next part of this first round, and we'll get into all these guys, but we have Loveland going to tight end premium at 109. We have Harris sneaking in there, my guy LQ, NFL Fantasy. He jumped in here. He took our guy Trey Harris at 110. That's probably earliest I've seen Trey Harris go in a while. Caleb Johnson at 111, and then I took Tyler Warren at 112. So generally speaking, the only outliers in this draft that I've seen is pretty much Trey Harris and probably Caleb Johnson. Those two guys are generally going in the beginning of the second, and they're flipping with like Egbuka and Golden possibly. Burden is falling down. So Burden is one of those guys that's definitely falling down the market a little bit. I'm going to talk about that. I think that that's a value for you if you're out there being able to draft a guy like him in this system. I think Burden to me is one of those guys that next year you're going to really like him. I think that's one of those guys that they can build around. I don't think DJ Moore is there for the long haul. So I think Burden's really going to kind of benefit from that, right? I just got sniped in the third round. Tommy just sniped me in the third round. And I was just going to keep making my point and make my pick, but now I got to find somebody else here. I am not drafting well. So do not follow my draft plan here right now. I do like my first two picks, but all right. So when you're thinking of that, when you're thinking of Warren and Caleb still be on the board there, I think those are fine picks. And I think the second round has a ton of value in that early second. Egbuka, great pick. I think for me, I think people are banking on Mike Evans and Godwin being there the whole season. We've seen Mike Evans now get banged up, and I know he's an ultra god, but we have seen that for a couple seasons now. Godwin, I don't know if his leg's ready, right? I think that there's a chance that we'll be talking about Godwin not being ready for the start of the season, and he might not be the same, right? I know we got the contract, but I think Egbuka is on the JSN train, right? We know that with kind of how the JSN train has went the last couple of years, and if you can get a guy like that at 201, I think it could be wide receiver 2 of the class. That's a smash pick for me. I think that he is getting pushed down too far. Him and Burden, especially when you think of Dynasty, how wide receivers get treated, how that wide receiver value stays. And I get it. They didn't get the greatest landing spots, but again, wouldn't you want them in the system that's going to throw the football a ton, like Egbuka is going to be in, Burden as well? And don't you want him in Ben Johnson's offense? I just, I think we galaxy brain this stuff too much. We've talked about how great Ben Johnson is for so long that now all of a sudden we're like, oh, we're going to shy away from the piece that he called a stud in the second round. To me, I don't know about that. I'm not sure if I'm going to value that. I'm going to value what he says more, right, than what is there. So, and I get it. And again, shout out Dan. Appreciate you, man. Hope everything's good with the family. And yeah, I'm taking 100 every chance I get. That's fine. And that's a hell of a ceiling play, right? So I don't mind at 102. It is what it is. I think I'd lean Tet just because I know he's going to be the receiver. He's going to get the targets that he's always going to get. But I don't mind the Hunter love. I really don't. I think that when you look at Hunter, I mean, he has immense upside. So I think from that perspective, I can't fault you. I think in our guy, we put him at 102 or 103. probably 103, I think it was. But we talked about him being that tier 101 to 105. He's definitely in that tier. So I get it. I understand it from that perspective. All right, let's get in the second round just because I'm talking too slow. So we got Egbuka, Burden, Jack Beck, and Golden Higgins. So this is the run of wide receivers here in this second round. Then the quarterbacks. You got Jackson Dart, first round quarterback going at 206. I don't love that. I might have taken him at 112 if I realized he was still on the board. I think that if you're looking at it from just a value perspective, first round quarterback, they traded up to go get him. He's going to hold value, whether you like Jackson Dart or not. I mean, he's going to hold value in that spot, and that's a great value pick. I love that pick there. Jalen Monroe going at 207, Scatabo going at 208, and then this is where you start seeing that tier a little bit. So this is where you start getting in those fourth round running backs, and in those tight ends that kind of went off the board. And again, this is tight end premium. So Scatabo has a pretty good spot, right? When we're thinking of where he landed with Tyrone Tracy, could get that early down work. It really depends on what you think of Scatabo. Like there's some guys that absolutely hate him. My guy, Christian Williams, or there's people like me who are pretty agnostic about him, right? I think that's one of those things there. Tootin, Bayshall Tootin, that's a great pick at 209. I do think there's a tier-ish at 209, right? People always ask when you're going to trade out of that spot. I think 209, 210, depending on the premium. If you like some of these wide receivers, you'd probably say 301, right? Just because, or excuse me, these tight ends, just because of the value back there. And I'll get to this since I'm talking about it anyway. So he asked thoughts on Milroe in the second round. I don't think I don't have the cojones to take Milroe in the second round, but I understand the ceiling play of his rushing upside. And as much as I love Sam Darnold as a Darnold truther from back in the day when he was playing USC and he was a linebacker in high school, I think that that contract just kind of speaks to what they think of him too. That first round kind of, that 1 year deal, really, it's a prove it deal again. Now Darnold got that, and they've kind of set themselves up for kind of a mini rebuild. If Milroe's part of that process, I don't mind drafting him from 207 to 212, right? Like I get it. And again, he doesn't usually fall to the third. So you're taking him from 207 to 212 in that range. And so from just a process perspective, if you're looking at a team build perspective and what you're doing with Jalen Milroe, if you have the luxury to take a guy like Milroe because, hey, maybe he gets some spot starts, maybe Darnold gets injured behind that offensive line, maybe they look at it and say, hey, we gave him that 1 year deal. We can get out of this contract. Hey, Milroe's our guy. And they obviously liked what they saw from him. It's not a bad play. And we've seen tons of quarterbacks get run. And all you need is Milroe to get some spot starts for someone to buy into him, and you got to recoup that value too, right? That's also the other play there. Again, Tootin, Scatabo, I do like the idea of Tootin being there. I think that's a next year play. Scatabo is more of a this year play. And then those tight ends, Taylor, Arroyo, and Ferguson. I mean, I'm a Taylor guy. I would have taken Taylor ahead of those other two. I would have taken Ferguson ahead of Arroyo. I like that value at the end of a second at 1.75 tight end premium, right? I think that when you're looking at this, it wouldn't shock me to see like one of those guys maybe outscore Loveland and Warren this year. I mean, I think that's a hot take, but I do think that they're going to be closer than people think. One of those guys. I think Ferguson's got to prove his blocking a little bit in that McVay offense. Arroyo's kind of set up, but how much do you trust, Darnold to really have three fantasy relevant kind of players there? Mason Taylor's the one that stands out to me. I just think it's Justin Fields going to have to take that step as a passer. And we've been asking that for years now, right? But I do think that bad quarterback play or struggling quarterback play can definitely kind of look at it, tight ends being that outlet. We've seen Wilson do that before. Excuse me. Jeez, I'm getting old. Fields do that before, especially with Cole Kmet, right? Like that's part of the deal there too. All right, let's go to the third round here. So, when you're looking at this, we got Williams, Kyle Williams, Tyler Shuck. Again, pretty good value for Shuck, being that he might be the starter for New Orleans this year, which is gross. But hey, that's the game we play. Harold Fanning going at 303, Jalen Noel 304, Jaden Blue and Dylan Sampson, Jalen Royals, Devin Neal, Shador going at 309, Jarquez Hunter, Woody Marks, and Brashard Smith going in there. Before I get into that third round, we do have a trade question. You can drop your guys' trade questions down, and we'll talk about it. So, would you trade Neighbors and the 202 for the 103, 105? No, I'm keeping Neighbors. I wouldn't even trade. I wouldn't even. First of all, you shouldn't be giving up any picks. So in my opinion, plus Kamara with the 103 and 105. No, I'm still keeping Neighbors. I mean, Kamara's great, but this is it. I think his fall off is now, and I think that what would you try to be? What would you be doing there in terms of like you're looking for a Neighbors at 103 or 105 anyway? So, and if I have the 202, that's not worth it to me. I'm taking Neighbors. I mean, he could realistically Neighbors is Dynasty wide receiver 1 in a couple of years, right? And I just don't want to give away that value for 2 lottery picks and an aging running back. That's just not what I'm looking there. Justin dropped a trade in here. Am I crazy to offer the 1 4 and 2 26 first? Ooh, for Brian Thomas Jr. and 1 quarterback start 9. So 1 quarterback makes a difference here. The first don't bother me because it's if they're late, great. 26 class is not great yet. I mean, there's still time, and these guys. I mean, I saw Jeremiah Love getting out there. They were saying he's gonna be the next Ashton Genty, so there is plenty of time for the 26 class to kind of bump up a little bit. Start 9. I mean, you're getting an elite asset there. I don't think that's crazy. I think especially if you're looking at the 104 being if McMillan, Hampton, and Genty off the board, I mean, really you'd be deciding between Hunter and those guys. I don't think it's crazy. I think that it's fair. I think the question is, do you believe in Trevor Lawrence to be able to elevate kind of Brian Thomas Jr. to that top 5 finishes, right? Because Brian Thomas Jr. is in that interesting spot where maybe his value is way higher than what his actual production and play is going to be on the field. So you always got to balance that with Brian Thomas Jr. there. But I don't think it's a crazy deal at all, in my opinion. And 1 quarterback and 26 class being kind of down. I mean, it's a buy high, right? My buddy Sam, he writes for Fantasy Life. Sam Wallace, one of my closer friends before this last year, kind of when he's kind of doing his teaching thing, he always talked about buying high on assets. And if you believe in them, you buy high on those assets. Like, I understand that 100%. Now, when you're looking at this 3rd round, guys that stand out to me, I like the back end of these 3 guys, like Jarquez Hunter at the Rams could be their guy next year. Woody Marks, great value there, especially for what Houston gave up to get him. I love him at 311. And then Brashard Smith, I know he's a 7th round kid, but I can't quit me some Brashard Smith. I was a big fan of Brashard Smith coming out of SMU, even though I knew he had limitations, sub 200, those type of things. But he lands in the Chiefs, which, I mean, when you think of what they have moving forward after 2025, they only have Brashard Smith and Carson Steele as under their books, right? Now, tons of things can happen in Dynasty and free agency and drafts and all of that. But I think Brashard can carve out a role for himself, right? So I don't mind taking him in the late 3rd. I knew I wasn't going to get him in the 4th at the 412, but I'll take him at the 312 and kind of hope there's some value there. And in the 4th round, it gets dirty, y'all. Like, we're not talking about cream of the crop here of players, but we got DJ Giddens, Ollie Gordon, Torrey Horton, Jordan James, Elegant Manor, Pat Bryant, 3rd round guy, there. Gunnar Helm, Dylan Gabriel, Tesla. I forgot how to say that. Damian Martinez, Restropro, which I don't know, man. He's still running his 40. And Mananage, I think is how you say it. Man, I'm butchering names this morning for Rutgers. Going to Chicago. 4th round, there's a lot of mixed bags. I will say this, and there's a lot of hate out there for this kid, but I think the hate is unwarranted. Pat Bryant is a hell of a value in the 4th round. Thinking of draft capital and what Peyton talked about him. Now he's not Michael Thomas, but if he can become the Cortland Sutton guy, right? The guy after Cortland Sutton, I think he has a role in this offense. I mean, I think people are buying low in this offense, or maybe selling this offense a little too low for what it is. I think Bo Nix, as much as I hate Bo Nix, so I'm just going to be real with you guys. I was never a Bo Nix guy, but I think that what he's shown has been good enough, right, to lead an offense and to give some fantasy relevant players. I think Pat Bryant the 4th is a hell of a dart throw. I mean, I don't mind that dart throw. That's a great dart throw there in terms of what he could be, what his role could be even next year. That's a great one there. As far as these other guys, Damian just didn't get the capital that you wanted to see, and he's in Seattle. Not a great value there. DJ Giddens, I would have loved to see him in Dallas, but of course they took Jaden Blue. Ollie Gordon, he's okay. To me, I'm taking some wide receiver shots here. I do think Kyle, who I drafted at 412, since Chicago did not draft really anybody, right, in terms of that running back position until Kyle, there's value to be had there. I mean, if Swift goes down, which is not unheard of, Roshan goes down, which is not unheard of, like these guys, there's value to be had there. So that's kind of how I would lean in terms of some of the guys I like. As far as like, when you're thinking, how you do your roster builds, right? So when you're thinking, okay, how do I do my roster builds and how I looked at, to me, it's just all about value. I think the one thing with rookie drafts that I really try to emphasize, you don't need needs right now, unless you desperately, like, you have one quarterback in a super flex league, and that quarterback is, I don't know, who's an ass quarterback? Jared Goff, right? If that quarterback's Jared Goff and you're sitting there at 105 and you're like, gosh, I got to get Cam Ward, I understand it, right? I'd be more prone to trade out of that pick for a quarterback. I think that one thing I wrote about in our Substack recently, I talked about, if I need a veteran quarterback and I'm sitting there in that mid first, I'm moving the pick, man. Baker's out there. Dak is out there. There's a lot of guys in that mid tier that I'd be more comfortable with having, right? There's some guys in that range that I'm like, yeah, I would really think that from a veteran standpoint, I'd rather have them, unless my team is absolutely just crushed, rebuilding, not in that state. But if I'm a mid tier team, what's Cam Ward upside going to give you this year? Probably nothing. But if you want to compete for the playoffs and then possibly go get win a championship, which we're all trying to do, I think there's some mid-tier quarterbacks that definitely are attainable, right? Kyler's in that range. I think at the high end, if you really want to go after someone like that. But I'm more comfortable with Dak. I'm more comfortable with Baker Mayfield, which I can't believe I'm saying out loud. There's some guys in that range that I'm much more comfortable with than Cam, and maybe even like a guy like Kyler, right, that you can do. And I think some teams will really buy into maybe coming up and grabbing one of these running backs, that you can get some hell of a value there from that running back spot. All right, let's kind of go through here. I have such a mixed bag in the fourth. Hunter, Gordon, James, Etienne. Yeah, and I get it. Basically, I understand from the fourth round perspective, just trying to grab some running backs. I mean, that's kind of how it goes. Jordan James to the 49ers is not a bad spot for him. I think that from a running back perspective and from just a scheme perspective, there could have been worse spots for Jordan James, right? And we don't know what that running back room is going to look like. I mean, obviously, Jordan Mason's not there. I think that when you're thinking of CMC, if he's CMC of old, he's, obviously Jordan James not going to get that many touches, but we always know that a Shanahan running back is not a bad bet to bet on in the fourth, right? Thoughts on Jordan Watkins? I'm out on Watkins, but I do think of Rodney Gadsden. So I'm going to drop a Dynasty kind of taxi squad stash video on Monday. Gadsden's on there. Like I actually probably should have taken his ass at the 412, but I've already taken, well, he's not really a tight end, but I've already taken 2 tight ends. I think Gadsden with that system with the Chargers, that's a great pick. That was a great pick by them. I think they can utilize him inside out. I think that they're going to utilize him all over the field. And that's, I think, when you're thinking of what Roman likes to do, but also Harbaugh. I mean, Harbaugh is an amazing coach when it comes to tight ends. Just look what he's done for Loveland, right? I think he probably mirrors Loveland in a way. Obviously not the blocker that Loveland is. Loveland is an underrated blocker, but Gaston is a hell of a value in terms of what you're looking for. And to me, if you have some extra force, grab Gaston. If not, get him on your taxi. Get him off your waivers. Like that's a priority waiver ad for me. So Gaston to me is a priority waiver ad. When you're looking at kind of, who you want to draft late, because it's just the value there. Now, I do want to go off some of the guys that did not get drafted. So I was trying to put up on the screen, but you can't. So I'm going to pull up my phone. So Quinn Ewers is still on the board. Isaiah Bond still doesn't have a team. So, damn, that was a fall off. Will Howard is an interesting one, too. I think as much as I hate Ohio State, Pittsburgh hasn't gotten Aaron Rodgers yet. Now, I don't know when they're going to get Aaron Rodgers, if they get Aaron Rodgers there. And I just can't see them being comfortable with Mason Rudolph. However, Will Howard, if he starts and they don't go get somebody, he's their QB2. He's an interesting one, right? Like from a value perspective and the quarterback spot as a late round guy, Will Howard just stands out to me as being someone to stash, right? Tej Johnson still on the board, Savion Williams, Ty Felton. My boy Ty, I don't know who it was. So whoever it was out here on YouTube, you need to show your ass, because I remember I talked about liking Ty Felton a ton. I think it was on the Quarters podcast. We did our wide receiver rankings, or maybe it was something else. And someone dropped and said, will he even get drafted? Trying to be an ass. Yeah, he did. Day 2. So I told you a team was going to like Ty Felton. Now, I think the worry is he's on Minnesota. So what's those targets look like? But they do like their third wide receiver. So I think there's a run for him. And if they scheme up touches like they did at Maryland for him, there's an opportunity. I know he had a ton of schemed up touches, like 40% of his catches were schemed up this last year. So that kind of threw some people off. They didn't want that. But if he gets that in Minnesota, I think you're excited, right? I think that if he gets a couple scheme touches a game, it's an interesting one. But I just wanted to shout him out because he got me some day two capital and was allowed me to talk some shit to people. LaQuint Allen at Jacksonville is still on the board. Who are some other ones? Mitchell Evans. No, we don't stand Mitchell Evans here. Taj Brooks still on the board. Cincinnati. I think Brooks is a good one to kind of stash. I don't mind that pick there. Brooks is not going to do anything amazing. However, he does pretty much everything average. So that's a positive thing if you're looking in the fourth round, right? Like Taj is one of those guys that can definitely do that. Ricky White, I just wish he would have went to a better spot than Seattle because I was a big Ricky White fan. He's going to make the team based on special teams. I'd be shocked if he didn't. Khalil Mulling sitting there, Tennessee, not the best spot ever. The one guy that I just can't quit, and I don't know if you guys are like that too, just have that guy that can't quit. Kobe Hudson going to Carolina. Kobe Hudson's better than Jalen Coker, in my opinion. So, like, Kobe Hudson, UCF kid, I know he went undrafted. He's a guy to watch. As the mini camps go, as you guys, all the preseason stuff goes, watch Kobe Hudson. Like, he can play. 6'1", 200, big boy, can move fast. I think that he's got great receiving ability, good hands. Kobe Hudson's, to me, the one that I'm watching as all this plays out in the offseason, kind of see what kind of buzz is out there about Kobe Hudson, because I just can't quit the guy. He's a hell of a wide receiver, and I wish he would have got drafted a little. Just got drafted, right? That capital. But I get it. I understand why he didn't. But I'm blaming Gus Malzahn. Like anything, if you watch college football, Gus Malzahn is the problem there. So if you have any other comments or trades, drop them, right? I was only going to stay on here for about 30 minutes, so I got about 5-ish minutes left. While I do that, I am going to plug I want to show you guys our rookie guide. And that way you can kind of see it. So I can kind of go over what we had going on. But again, drop some questions as you go. And I just want to kind of show you guys the rookie guide. I'll move my ugly ass out of the way for you. So this is the rookie guide that we're selling right now on our Patreon, our Substack. It's just standalone. It's on Amazon. It's on Kindle. If you want to go to Kindle, you can go grab it here. So what we decided to do with the rookie guide this year is something a little different. So a couple years ago, Christian and I started kind of the rookie guide for football guys where we used to work. It was our idea to kind of come up with this guide, and we wanted to do it in January, get as many players out there as you can so you guys could be ready. Just who are these guys? And then this year we decided, you know what, let's calm down a little bit and let's just do it right after the draft, but let's add some actionable content, right? Everybody can just throw rankings in. They can just throw their stuff in, and it's all great work. People do great work out there. But for us, we wanted to say, okay, what are some things that we could do? So, we added, not only did we add just player rankings, we also added, how to win your rookie draft. So strategy-based articles. So one of the things that we like to do, and I'll be quick here. We did our rankings. We have our big boards. But one thing that we really wanted to add this year, and we're going to do more of it next year, is just kind of, all right, what is a pick worth, right? So here's the 101. Here's who the players are going around those guys for straight up-ish, right? It's always hard depending on league settings and values out there. What's that player pick worth? So Ashton Jeanty, is he worth Saquon, Nico, Drake London, or an add-on? And then basically the pick value section. So this is where I wrote up. I just talked about, hey, here are some guys that he's getting valued at. Here's where the pick is getting valued at based on the player. And then we talked about what we would do. So, okay, here's what we're going to do. Where this decision starts with, hey, I would take Ashton Jeanty. However, if you are rebuilding, this might be a way you kind of go. How do you maximize that dynasty value? So that's the area that we wanted to kind of change a little bit. It is over 125 pages. It's definitely one of the biggest guides out there. We have the big boards. We have all of that. But this is also where we went to the first round and said, hey, this is where we'd value these guys. This is where that picks we'd value there. I think it's worth the money. But again, I made it, so I'm a little biased. But if you want to go check that out, please go check it out in the description. If you want a little sneak preview, what you would be getting, just DM me, right? You just find me out there. You can DM me and talk about it there. And we can go from there. So I appreciate you guys tuning in as always here on the channel. We have another video coming soon, a couple videos here talking about some stashes, some guys that you like there. But if you really want to find all our content, Substack is where you find it. Go to Substack, the Devy Royale Substack. You can find in the link below, and our Patreon. 2 different options for you guys to kind of check that out. So appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys next time.